Howdy folks, Darren Ray Fonso here talking about workers' compensation or labor and industries as we call it here in the state of Washington. Tonight's topic is going to be my cry out or a plea to Senator Sanders to please stand up and speak up and put and verbalize and shout out really loud about what you put in writing to the injured workers of America 3 years ago about the needed minimum federal oversight. I feel egregious at this point that I have been screaming out to Bernie-crats in my state and across this country and to Senator Sanders and Democrats for this minimum federal oversight. My side, Patty Murray, Tom Perez, and Senator Bernie Sanders all told us we needed. They told Senator Sanders wrote a letter to the U.S. Department of Labor and OSHA, and all of them agreed 3 years ago that we needed this minimum federal oversight to stop a class war and the inequality that is being waged upon America's injured workers. And yes, even I think it was OSHA or the Department of Labor, one of them said that the failing state work comp systems are adding to America's inequality. So we can't address inequality without addressing the war on injured workers. And so that's why it's egregious to me when Senator Sanders had the opportunity, when the injured Amazon worker who was sleeping in her car was screaming out for help to America about a war that was being waged upon her. And that Senator Sanders only used her and her grief to show how she was living in her car and the egregious conditions that she was going through, to say that, gee, Jeff Bezos needs to pay $15 an hour to everybody. Her name was Shannon Allen, and boy, she was very upset, and for good, because he only used her grief to push for 15 an hour without even saying a word about her being an injured worker, or the needed minimum federal oversight that he told us we needed 3 years ago, nor the rank and file committees that she and the socialist group that she's with, the World Socialists, seem to want. Either way, he was only using the injured workers' grief to push for 15 an hour, while not using the injured workers' grief to tell us about what he told us about in writing 3 years ago in a letter. So the hypocrisy here from Senator Sanders and the Bernie-crats, the whole side, but definitely Senator Sanders at this point, because he spearheaded this thing with that letter, and to not step up and put your voice for what you put in writing to the injured workers 3 years ago needs to stop. And it wouldn't be so bad if it was just the Amazon incident. But once again, the world socialists have been the ones to come out and report the war on injured workers more so than Sanders. And this world socialist group, even though I'm not for the rank and file committees, they are at least getting the injured workers' voices heard. And once again, they have come out and did a report about how Delta airline employees are getting injured on the job, and how there's a kind of basically having it's rigged against them and a war waged upon them, basically is what they're saying. And Senator Sanders picks up on that information once again. See, when the world socialists say, oh, there's something going on over here and these injured workers are being harmed, Sanders picks it up and goes over to that company and says, oh, they need 15 an hour. Instead of picking it up and saying, oh, well, they need the minimum federal oversight, or maybe, the rank and file that these other socialists seem to be calling for, whatever it is, he sure isn't putting he's not putting, he's not doing what he said he was going to do for the injured workers of America in the letter that he wrote to us 3 years ago. I feel as though he wrote us a love letter 3 years ago to today he doesn't want to speak up and talk about. So it was just like a letter written 3 years ago to placate the injured workers of America, with no real intent to put that on the table for us. And I have begged of his people and his Bernie-crats, and as Tyler Vega that runs his Bernie-crat coalition in the state of Washington, who tells me to contact a Republican, their Republican Scott Stefante that they endorsed. Go figure on that one. But nonetheless, that I'm supposed to contact him for alternative solutions to what Senator Sanders put in a letter to us, injured workers, 3 years ago. This is egregious, and so I'm calling out to Senator Sanders to please, step up and man up here and get honest with America's injured workers. You don't get to be two-faced like that, and that's what you're doing when you do that. And so and he said to call him out. Senator Sanders said, call him out. Well, here I am, Senator Sanders, calling you out and your people out, because this is egregious. And your people even come right out and tell us, well, gee, Darren, he can't get honest. If he gets honest about it, or Tyler Vega, who's also, or any of the other Bernie-crats get honest about your issue, they become unelectable, and that is bullshit. And you feed right into that, Senator Sanders, when you sit around and keep your mouth shut, as I've been begging out for your help for the injured workers of America. We're not going to get the help that we need if you don't step up and speak up and tell us what we need. It's almost like you're all for us getting cost shifted off to Medicare for all. We're going to give you 15 an hour and cost shift you off to Medicare for all. But anyways, that's, to me, it seems like but before in your letter, you were against that kind of cost shifting. I'm just going to leave it at that. It's to me, it was who was a Bernie Pratt fan until he dropped out, and then I had to go with Jill Stein because my Democrats weren't listening to me. So I had to go run and try to help Jill Stein, and went to the Green Party folks here in town to try and get the injured workers' voices heard. And Jill Stein slammed me down, and David Cobb, her campaign assistant, didn't want to help. And Tyler Vega, who happened to be at one of those Green Party meetings, I met with him and David Cobb, Jill Stein's campaign aide, at the same meeting one night. And I told them about the war on injured workers, and they did not want to help. So it's egregious to me that injured workers of America are placated with a letter from the United States Congress and United States senators and the U.S. Department of Labor and OSHA all told us this needs to be done, but everybody has blocked me for 3 years now from being able to get that on the progressives or the Democrats or the Green parties or even Kashmir Sawant, socialists. Here in the Northwest, we have Socialist Alliance. And even Kashmir Sawant doesn't want to step up and speak up about the need of minimum federal oversight. So I think what we're having is our grand bargain eroded away, and I think both parties and everybody is in on it. I think they want to erode it away and cost shift us off to Medicare for all and income for all and whatever else that they're gonna try and give us. And it's just, to me, it's egregious that we're losing our grand bargain. And both sides know what's going on. Nobody wants to do nothing about it to try and keep it. And so if you're all for getting rid of the grand bargain, that's what they're working on doing here. They're working on abolishing it. You're not going to have it. You're going to have free care, and you're going to have a free tuition for all. And so then, therefore, you're going to have you're not going to need vocational services. You're not going to need the medical, and eventually they're going to get you an income for all. So you're not going to need your time loss. You see. Eventually, we're just going to do away with that grand bargain, but nobody's telling us about that. And that's what the game plan seems to be here. And all sides are in on it, as far as I'm concerned. But for me, is saying as somebody who was for Bernie, and I still would have at times would like to see him, win. But not if he doesn't want to get honest about this issue, and not if his Bernie crats are going to tell us in my state, gee, no, we can't get honest about it. If we get honest about that, we won't get elected. That, to me, is egregious. And especially when we had somebody get honest about it in the state of Virginia, some guy who ran there as a state assemblyman was a lineman. He got honest about work comp and was telling the truth, and he ran on that, and he got elected. His first time running for office. So this myth that Senator Bernie Kratz handlers seem to be telling him that if we get honest about a war on injured workers, we become unelectable is bullshit. And this myth that you're going to cost shift us all off to other programs while you don't get honest about the fact that our grand bargain is already being robbed away from us, and we're not being able to fight for it. The game has been rigged against us. And these doctors are able to lie to harm, to deny us, and then we can't get justice. So the deck has been rigged and stacked against the injured workers of America. You know that's going on, Senator Sanders. You wrote it in a letter 3 years ago. And you wrote the solution to us, what we needed to be done to stop that war on injured workers 3 years ago. And so I don't understand today why we can't still fight for that needed minimum federal oversight, along with any of the other so-called radical ideals that make you unelectable. Because a lot of these other big ideals you got seem to make you unelectable as well, but you don't fear telling the truth about those. So why do we fear telling the truth about a war on America's injured workers? I would like to know, Senator Sanders and the Bernie Kratz, and even to my Democrats of America, why are we allowing the states to fail injured workers of America and not stand up and represent the injured workers with some minimum federal oversight? It's really egregious at this point that one man in one state can get $35,000 for an amputated arm, and in the other state over, the next guy can get $750,000 for the same amputated parts. That is an inequality that needs to be addressed. We can't pit labor against labor to the point where one is being robbed to that degree. So I wanted to keep it short and sweet. There it is, 10 minutes. That's short and sweet for me, for the people that know me. Senator Sanders, the Bernie-crats, and my Democrats need to step up to the plate here. Pramila Jayapal, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, or Jayapal, I'm sorry, and then Washington State Senator Marilyn Chase, our state senators, and our federal lawmakers all need to get honest about this issue so as we could get it addressed with the needed minimum federal oversight. And if your state is already doing really well, then you have no fear of the minimum federal oversight. It's to help your brothers and sisters in the other state that may not be being treated so well. And that's, to me, it's egregious. It's just basic. We treat spark plugs better than we do injured workers. We regulate how spark plugs are made on a federal level and even a universal level better than we treat injured workers. That we allow each state to decide how they are going to treat or not treat their injured workers, and a race to the bottom for them competing for state work comp rates to see who can harm their injured workers the most, so the good jobs will trickle down, that most of the time never do trickle down to the states that's harming the workers the most. I'll leave it at that. Senator Sanders, if you're going to write a letter and tell us that this is a solution, and the other 10 senators, the other 10 U.S. senators that signed off on that, some of them are still in office, and the other one, Senator Patty Murray, is in my state. She's still in office. She could step up and still help us here, and that's what needs to happen here. You don't get to give me a solution to a class war on my class of people, then none of you want to put that on the table and tell us, gee, it makes us unelectable. That is egregious, and that is wrong and unethical and immoral at this point, and my side needs to step up and start representing all the injured workers of America, not just the ones in your state, all of us. Whatever happened to all for one and one for all, or something, I forget how it goes, but that's pretty much the way it's supposed to be going. We're not supposed to be competing to where one man is getting his arm chopped off and getting 35 grand, and the other one 750 for the same thing. That we need to correct that inequality, and the states that are doing that and left to their own accord are failing those injured workers, and we need to step in as brothers and sisters and represent all of us and not just a few of us, and not make us compete and beat up on one another in a race to the bottom to see who can work for the least and barefooted and for 50 cents a freaking hour. I'll leave it at that. Have a good day. And howdy to the friend that was hanging in there. 10 minutes, short and sweet. I wanted to keep it that just so I could put this, I'm going to put this video with my liking page, where I put some other videos back to back together showing where Senator Sanders is doing exactly what I've said right here, that two times he's had the opportunity to speak up and speak out about this issue and about the solutions for it, and instead he only uses our issue and our grief to try and push other agendas while not pushing for the needed minimum federal oversight he himself told us is needed to stop this class war that's being waged upon us at will and on sniffs and grins. Thank you, and have a good evening.